We want to invite you into the miracles of what God is doing in the earth right now in this moment. We want to share our story with you about where God has taken us and where He is continuing to take us in this move. See, in 2020, I received this overwhelming desire to get an RV. But it wouldn't be until 2021 when God spoke to me and my wife. He said these words, "Position yourself in such a way to be prepared to go." And we thought to ourselves, God, where are we going? And He kept confirming with us, Washington. So we sold everything, we quit our practice, we moved into this RV, and my wife comes into the RV one night and she said, I found Zion National Park. She says, I believe that we're supposed to go through there on the way to Washington State. And I thought to myself, well, Zion means heaven, like that makes some sense. But the next day, God spoke to me. He says, open up the map to Zion. So I opened up the map, and sure enough, at the very gate of Zion would be Washington County, Utah. He says it's not Washington State you're supposed to go to, it's Washington County. The very next day, this RV pulls up next to us in Missouri at the RV park. He gets out of the RV, and I said, hey neighbor, where are you from? He said, Utah. And I said, well, that's crazy because that's exactly where we're supposed to go. He said, cool, which part? I said, Washington County, Utah. He said, that's where I'm from. He shared everything about Washington County. So we knew the time was now that we had to go. And so we left Missouri, we went down through Texas, and I received a vision. And in this vision would be a white tent. And I said, Lord, if it's your will, I'm asking for a white tent. Well, on the very last day in Texas, this pastor, I'm walking out of the church, getting ready to head to Utah, and he says, hey, do you need a tent? And I said, yeah, I've been praying to God for a tent. He said, this is gonna sound crazy, but this gigantic white tent showed up on our front doorstep, and no one has a clue where it came from. He says, you gotta take it with you to Utah. So we left Texas, we headed to St. George, Utah, Washington County, Utah, and sure enough, this guy had a field that we can use. And so my buddy of mine texted me a couple days prior. He said, hey, I received a word from the Lord for you and your family for Utah. And he said this, he said, it's gonna sound really strange, but you just have to trust me. He said, Blue Ford. And I said, what does that even mean? He says, I don't know, take it with you. And so I'm driving to this field, and I'm like, God, I need you to 100% confirm that this is the field. And I showed up at this field. The owner had all these Airbnbs. He said, you can use all of this for free. And sure enough, in that moment, he said, oh, and the place I want you to put your tent on is right behind you. And I'd turn behind me, and there would be a blue Ford tractor sitting right on the field. And God said, this is where you plant. And sure enough, through all that, revival broke out. We saw people handing down their addictions. We saw people come to Jesus. We saw baptisms. We saw families get restored. We saw everything of the residual of what revival does. And we went for 37 nights of revival. And in the midst of those 37 nights, spiritual warfare broke out. But in the same sense, God said this, you are to start a church here in Washington County. And He said this, you are to call it Revival City. And so sure enough, the church launched. We have seen so many miracles. We have seen the increase. We've seen the glory of God, and we've seen His word be preached like never before in a very religious territory. But God is saying this, the kingdom of God is at hand. And so Revival City has been mandated to take revival into new territories, into villages, cities, and towns, with the result to leave a remnant behind so that they can advance the kingdom of God in that territory. So we want to encourage you, answer the call of God. Go places you've never dreamed of, because He is speaking this very day to His people, and He wants His kingdom to come on earth as much as it is in heaven. We're excited about the future. We're excited about what God's going to do through Revival City. So we say this, jump on board with what God is doing in the earth. Bless you.